Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 8th of August and this is Indexer Office Hours 118. So if anyone is new to Indexer Office Hours, and I do recognize a few new faces, I say that every single week, but genuinely there are always new people who pop up, so that's always lovely to see. This is the town square where ecosystem participants come together and to discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexers. This is a conversation. We love participation. So at any point in today's conversation, please get involved. You can either do that via voice. And if you're having any issues there unmuting your mic, let me know and I can get that sorted for you. Or you can obviously get involved via the text box in the corner there. So just as a reminder, this is recorded and will be published onto public channels like YouTube. So if you're concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. Oh, I said 118. It's actually not 118. It's actually 119. Sorry about that. That was a mistake on my end. First time I made a blip there. Anyways, so for my opening remarks, I give a shout out to 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗨𝗂𝗧, and this episode is no different. It is 128 with 𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗨𝗂𝗧𝗨𝗂𝗧, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And Nick interviewed him. He is working at 𝗨𝗧𝗨, or he used to work at 𝗨𝗨𝗨, and played a significant role on the data team there. He was involved in building and deploying several subgraphs via 𝗨𝗨𝗨. Is obviously a well-known person in the Web3 space. As some of you know, 𝗨𝗨𝗨 has been featured already in the podcast with Ryan, who's the founder and CEO. But in this particular podcast with Jamie, he talks a bit about his background, his early experiences in crypto, some of the efforts that he made in terms of building subgraphs, and also his future views on Web3 and the potential direction for not only the graph, but also substreams, power subgraphs within the ecosystem. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. Thank you so much, Juan, for posting the agenda and the podcast episode there. Wonderful. Now I'm going to hand over to Anna, who's going to take us into our regularly scheduled Repo Watch section.
Hello, everyone. Today on Repo Watch, we have had a few releases on execution layer clients. Here we have had two Avalanche releases. So version 1.10.6, which is a pre-release, and then version 1.10.7, which is a stable release. They're both identical. These releases come with some fixes. So fixing C-chain transaction tracer crasher and MerkleDB panic during state sync. And it removes deprecated flags plus a few other updates. If you haven't tried 1.10.6, then skip that one and go straight to the stable release of 1.10.7. Then we also have a new release on Heimdall. This is a version 0.3.5 beta 1. This mostly contains bug fixes and minor improvements. Moving on to consensus layer clients, we have had a new release on Teku. This is release number 23.8.0. What you need to know about this release is that it is a recommended update. It contains a few memory allocation optimizations, and it also includes a move to Java 17 as the minimum supported Java version. This comes with some breaking changes. So first of all, because of the Java 17, users will need to upgrade their Java installation. And the Docker versions that were previously relying on JDK 16 will no longer be published. So users will need to update their Docker build references to packages containing Java JDK 17 tags. Also, for users who make heavy use of API calls to fetch non-finalized states data, they might see some messages, something like regeneration of state messages. If you are seeing this, you are advised to add the flag xstore state cache size, which was previously defaulted to 160. Other than that, This release comes with a few improvements. But yeah, those are the things that you need to know. And this is all we have on RepoWatch this week. I would like to remind you that last week we have introduced blockchain's operator upgrade calendar. So this is your one-stop solution for tracking hard forks updates and scheduled maintenance for various protocols within the Graph ecosystem. So if you haven't already subscribed to this or added this to your calendar, please go ahead and do that. And thank you again to Matt from Streaming Fast and Matthew from Pinax, who have been updating and contributing to this. That's it for RepoWatch. So over to you, Juan.
Thanks, Anna. Cool. So for Protocol Watch, we don't have a lot to cover, but getting right into it. For firm governance, we have an update on a new GIP, which is called Permissionless Payers GIP. I'm not going to go deep into it because we're going to cover that later down the road today. But just so you know, there's the new GIP there. It still doesn't have a number, I think, but that's fine for now. For forum research, we don't have updates since last IOH. Getting into the contracts repository, we have 3 PRs. 2 of them are related to the permissionless payers GIP, which are basically the to remove the asset holder allow list, as well as a merging of the dev branch with the new changes. And then there's another one related to adding the audit reports for L2 staking and vesting transfer tools related to the L2 transfer tools story. But that's pretty much it for contracts. For networks, again, we don't have any new releases. So that's pretty much it for Protocol Watch for now. So I'm going to hand it over to 𝗟𝗀𝗀 now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Juan. So as Juan alluded to in his section there, we are going to be covering the latest chip that he just referred to there, and we luckily have Zach, who's with us, who authored the GIP, to say a few words and answer any questions people have on this particular subject. And also, of course, let's remember to make sure that we post various things on the forum in relation to this, just so we can capture it there. But yeah, without further ado, Zach, if you want to unmute your mic and say a few words about the GIP, feel free to.
Thanks, 𝗟𝗀𝗀. Yeah, so the permissionless payment GIP would remove a check in the protocol. And that check limits incoming fees to pre-approved gateways. There are several reasons why we might want to remove this limitation. The first reason is censorship resistance. One of the goals of Edge and Node is to increase the graph's censorship resistance. One straightforward way to make a system censorship resistant is to make the system permissionless, because censorship resistance is a property of permissionless systems. So we want to make the graph as permissionless as possible. And that's what this change does, right? It removes a permission from the graph protocol. Another reason for this GIP is that we're starting to see novel experiences that are enabled by the graph that could be improved by removing this restriction. So one example of such a novel experience is Playground Analytics, which has developed an entire user experience around data analytics that utilizes the graph as a backend. Right? So they provide a value-add experience to end users of the graph. And it would be possible to provide that experience, through a gateway, but having that is kind of an unnecessary extra step for them. That's not ideal. They would prefer to actually interface directly with indexers, right, to provide the best experience at the lowest cost possible. And another thing which would be enabled by removing this restriction is fees for new kinds of data services like Firehose. We're expecting that the demand for Firehose is going to be primarily driven by indexer to indexer demand. And indexers would not necessarily need a gateway for that purpose, because they're well suited to facilitate their own payments and to have information about the quality of service of the network. So they could send fees directly to other indexers to enable firehose queries and thereby index subgraphs using data from the firehose. There's really not a lot to it. The GIP itself is short and sweet, so I hope you'll take some time to check it out on the forum and leave comments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the update there. We can do some questions if people have any. Otherwise, we can move on as well. Steak Machine, I see you have unmuted. Would you like to ask a question?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, apologies. I misread that. I saw your box light up, so I assumed you were asking a question. Gateway. Derek's asked a question about interest in running gateway. I would say that's probably best to add to the forum as a question. Yeah, unless anyone wants to jump in on that.
I didn't see the question. Where is it?
It's in the chat. He's asking, do we have others that have expressed interest in building their own gateway?
Primarily, are there other core developers that want to start running gateways? Do we have any pulse on that?
I don't want to speak for other core developers, but I think that there is generally interest in that.
Yes, I would say so too. Cool. I see Steak Machine typing. So, oh, cool. Yeah, got it. Wonderful. Well, if any questions do pop up, feel free to mention in the. Oh, I see Derek typing. I'll pause. Would you like to take that?
Yeah. So Derek is asking, from an indexer point of view, would we need to opt in to other gateways? And sorry if these are premature. Yes. So for right now, the indexer software does have an allow list. And I think that is important for the stage that we're at. Although we're making steps to be able to remove that allow list as well, it's going to be a process. So one of the reasons why you might want to opt into another gateway as opposed to having any gateway is because of the scalar tap GIP. If you look into that, Scalar was developed as a very efficient and trust minimized state channel system specifically for the graph, because we didn't find others that met the throughput or trust requirements. So although it is one of the best state channel systems out there from a trust minimization point of view, it also is still not good enough for the graph, because the graph has such a high volume of transactions that no existing state channel, including no existing state channel system, including Scalar, can be able to dispute such a high number of concurrent state channels in a trust minimized way, because the dispute process does have an associated cost. So what that means in practice is that an indexer would be trusting a gateway right now to sign those state channels at the end of the state channel game, so for them to get their payment. But with Scalar Tap, we're trust minimizing that even further, so that the amount of trust in a gateway is significantly reduced, so that those state channels would be signed over time, and you can basically minimize the amount of outstanding fees in state channels. So when it comes time to collect, that the most you could be at risk for is a very small amount. And if gateways want to continue doing business with indexers, we expect them to continue to sign those receipts as well. And so, like right now, right, you might not want to just enable every gateway, but you will have the option to do so. I think that there's more details about this in both the permissionless payers GIP and the scalar tap GIP. So, and if that explanation, if you need more to that explanation, we can definitely address that on the forum.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It seems like Marc-Andre has some comments on this. I can't seem to see a question, more so comments, but if you'd like to maybe elaborate further, Marc-Andre, feel free to.
Yeah, it's more a general comment. I mean, that's a change. I think that's a great thing. I mean, it means that we'll be opening up competition between gateways. That's a great. That means that we're maturing to a point where we can foresee that we can support multiple gateway operator. That's big net positive. But there remains a risk, and that's a risk where we could see new gateway operators starting favoring specific indexers, maybe even their own indexers, and we might see tight integration between gateway operators and indexers. That's a risk. That's something we'll need to watch for. I'm not sure exactly how we can prevent that from happening. I think market and economics will there will be market forces for this to happen. Until now, we've been okay. EdgeNode has been doing a great job at that, making sure that there's competition and making sure they treat indexers fairly. We'll have to make sure that the new players remain, I guess, honest and take the steps to make sure that there's a good competition landscape for the indexers.
Yeah, totally agreed. I think there's a lot of validity there. Yeah, these are things that are being thought about for sure. See a few people typing, so I will pause in case there are any further questions, thoughts on this. I'm just monitoring the chat here. Seems like people are making some comments, which is good, but obviously no audio. Let's keep the chat flowing. Okay. Yes, completely agree, Zach. Let's continue the discussion on the forum. Appreciate you giving us a bit of a update on this and answering some questions. But yeah, it's always good to capture the information in the forum. I will be posting the recording in the forum as well, just so there's one place that we can go to catch all of the information there. Thank you, Zach. Okay, let's have a look. At some of these things here. I'm wondering if there's any information about /related disputes somewhere. I don't have the answer to that, Anna, but I will look into that and get back to you. Yeah. Or maybe, I don't know if, Nick, if you have any context on this, feel free to chip in. Otherwise, I will follow up on that. If cool. 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 All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for getting involved in that. Now we have an open style discussion, as we like to do. So, if anyone has any topics, thoughts, ideas that they would like to share, questions, this is the best opportunity to do so. So, either you can type it away in the chat, or feel free to unmute your mic, and we can start with a new topic. Yes, sir. You're more than welcome to. Would you like to take it away?
Hey, yeah. So I don't know if you folks saw the update from Thiago on the chat. Basically, we have the indexer agent changes that Thiago presented, I think, last IOH or the previous one. They are almost ready for release. So Thiago has drafted the release, and this will be going out very, very soon. Yeah, keep an eye out for that release coming out. As soon as it's properly deployed, you should be able to start doing the dual network indexing more seamlessly. And as soon as that's out, we're also almost finalizing the changes in Explorer so that everyone can make use of the transfer tools immediately after they're out. So I would say the transfer tools might go out later this week or early next week. So it's coming very, very soon. So obviously we will post on Discord as we get closer to the release. To answer Payne's question, yes, you'll get a notice before. How much earlier before? I don't know. Maybe like day before or the same morning. So that, yeah, we don't delay this any further. So yeah, this is happening imminently.
That is fantastic news. Thank you so much for the update. Very much looking forward to that being kicked off. Cool. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions on that? I guess coming up soon, so
I guess the most important question was answered, which was when.
yeah, this is true.
Please always take the dates with a grain of salt. Obviously, if we find any issues in the final testing, this might be pushed back a bit more, but yeah, we're getting there very, very soon.
Let's go.
Awesome. Cool. Well, like I said, today's conversation is an open one, so we can do more of these updates. We can speak about other topics. The floor is yours. So, it's a great opportunity to ask questions to your fellow indexer, and to discuss interesting topics that people would like to know more about.
So for those who played with 𝗨𝗲𝗂𝗧, what's the difference between that and ceph-fs, and how does it play around Firehose? I know Alexis, I think, played with it. I'm not entirely sure, but also Matthew. So I'm curious on your thoughts.
I'm still using it. I think Ceph is harder to set up, right? You need a proper cluster. Whereas 𝗨𝗂𝗂𝗧, it's a little bit smaller. You could run it as a cluster, you can run it HA, but you don't have to. You can run it just as a container on your machine, and it will work, right? If you don't care about, HA and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 𝗨𝗨𝗂𝗧 is super easy to set up just as a single instance, if you want to just create a system D unit for those on bare metal, just run it in there. Pretty easy to set up. I haven't tried Seaweed in a cluster, so that's next on my to-do list.
I wonder if there's any kind of a similar approach, but that has support for RDMA in the end, because Ceph doesn't. Last time I checked, it was like community support something something. Yeah, but like in that regards, I think RDMA would be very, very useful, especially like it avoids a lot of the overheads that other solutions have.
I've been using SeaweedFS. I haven't tried anything else yet for firehose and substreams, but it's working great. So I don't see any reason not to use it. Just one thing that might not be obvious when you first read about it or set it up is that you still need a second, you need another database for S3 metadata information. So that makes Seaweed a little more complicated to set up. Well, I mean, that's another major step that you need to set up. So just keep that in mind. But overall, it's working great.
But does it have to live on the same disk, or can it be remote?
It could be remote, but basically you need to set up a third-party database.
Interesting.
Postgres could be MySQL, Redis. There are many options out there, but it's Seaweed is not fully self-contained.
Okay, no,
Well, I'm running.
Sounds good. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm running a container on its own, and I haven't added that, that DB, and it works fine for me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm losing some metadata, but it's streaming. I mean, the firehose is happy anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's right. You could set it up using local file, but then if you start adding more instances, more fillers, more S3 endpoints, at some point you'll see that starting up new fillers is takes a long time and is slow if you don't use a separate database.
Oh, okay, got it.
Well, I mean, maybe I could add maybe a little caveat to what I said and saying Merck works great. I had some instances where it happened like 3 times where I had files disappearing, but I don't know why exactly. Maybe it's because I had some process crashing somewhere. So yeah, I won't say that it's been perfect, but maybe it's the problem is Seaweed, maybe it's elsewhere. I don't know. But it would be great if more people try it and give feedback.
Yeah, I'm super into it. I've been reading a lot, and yeah, I think we're going to set it up instead of Ceph. Ceph was the main idea behind everything, and now that yeah, SeaweedFS is supposedly a lot better for tons of files, so it makes perfect sense in that regard. Especially for like insanely huge chains like BSC or Arbitrum.
When you get to chains with 300 million blocks, then let's start talking about huge.
Well, give Arbitrum another year.
On the same similar topic, has anyone managed to sync the Uniswap v2 substream yet?
No. Our team was going to try the bulk import CSV thing.
I'm syncing it the normal way, and it takes like so long.
I think it's like 20 days or something.
I think even more. I'm barely at I'm 4.2 million blocks behind, and it's super slow.
Yeah, I'm 200,000 block behind, so I'm almost sync. But yeah, graph node is remains the bottleneck. So yeah, I decided to use that instead of bulk import because, well, I'm not familiar with bulk import yet, but at least graph node runs in parallel, so you don't have to wait for the substreams to be fully synced. So maybe it's not necessarily always faster to go bulk.
Hey Matthew, I have a question. Are you running Firehouse inside Docker or Kubernetes, or are you running it on bare metal?
Bare metal.
Okay.
For the moment.
Okay, I just wonder how would that scaling work with seaweedfs if you're trying to run that in a container. I kind of like you kind of have to have the volume sitting outside like the host somehow.
Yeah, well,
for what?
With Kubernetes, you can do fancier thing. Well, you can mount a local directory, but yeah, with Kubernetes, you can have fancy setups for that. So depending on what do you mean by containers really here?
Yeah, I was more so referring to like the actual processes of like the Firehouse and like in the instrumented get and everything. But yeah, no, I get the idea.
So
myself,
luckily,
running
most of Firehose doesn't need storage. It's just the instrumented geth part.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The rest
exactly.
of it doesn't need any storage. So our plan is to convert substreams tier 1 and tier 2 to Kubernetes first, because there's no storage at all.
Can someone try to help Vincent clearing up his substreams cache? As he might have a problem with that.
Just remove the files.
Oh, it's literally just that. Okay.
Wherever you put the cache files, just remove them all. Done. Wait. The cache file names have the block number in them, so you can tell which file you're removing.
Hopefully that's useful, Vincent. Any other topics that people want to cover? Thoughts, questions, topics, anything goes. Again, this is an open one, and wanted to keep this one reasonably open. So if anyone has any thoughts, questions, topics, fire away.
Hey, Steak Machine, are you asking, is there a new graph node release, or are you asking when?
There is one, I guess, for testnet was released yesterday or some. Should we update or no?
I guess you can update on testnet, of course, and see if you run into any issues. So supposedly works better if it's including the PRs that I think it is. It should be making Firehose and substreams stuff a lot more stable. But I'm not entirely sure because I wasn't even aware that there was a new version coming.
So it's not essential to have it before transfer tools or anything.
No, and if it was essential, it would have not been release candidate because I assume it is a release candidate right now, right?
Yeah, I upgraded in testnet, so looking forward for mainnet.
Yep, yep. Hey, Derek, can you talk a little bit more about that particular subgraph? Like, what's it trying to solve, and yeah.
Yeah, it just stores the balances of literally every ERC20 on the mainnet. So it's beefy. There's a ton of data, ton of ERC20s, each with its own members, all that type of stuff, right? Or token holders. But just with the fact that substreams can be semi-composable, or you can import other S packages into the substream that you're building, having access to token balances would be pretty handy. Plus, that also opens the door for creating a wallet that is where the back end is kind of fueled by the graph, which is pretty sweet.
Interesting. One thing that I noticed on the Explorer, and I hope someone from the production team is present so they can take a look into this, but there's no way to tell if a subgraph is using substreams on the back end in the UI, basically, because the index network still remains mainnet, but there is no clear distinction between a subgraph and a substream-based subgraph on the Explorer.
If you click on the deployment ID.
No. I mean on the actual Explorer, because I know how to get to know if a subgraph is using substreams on the back end, but it needs to be way clearer on the Explorer, especially for indexers too.
It needs to be a filter criteria.
There is a way to query the network subgraph to find substreams. I posted it somewhere in Discord. I think it was yesterday. It just needs to make its way into the Explorer. And I would on the Explorer topic, I would also love to have those like subgraph uses unsupported features be more clear and explain why or which features. I've been asking for this for like 2 years. But yeah. Oh, I wasn't even reading the chat. There you go, Derek. Nice. OG, we post the recordings on our YouTube channel. Yeah, there you go. Awesome QA to the rescue.
That was pretty cool. That was good. Just want to flag the question from Harsh from 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, asking when do we anticipate the rollout of the functionality in the Postgres substream sync for exporting data into CSV files? I don't know much about that. Does anyone closer have any information on that?
I think there is already a tool available to import a CSV into Postgres.
Oh, sweet. Do you have a link or something?
I think it was Matthew that maybe had that link. I'm not entirely sure, but I know I seen something.
Well, so what are we talking about here? I'm confused by the question.
Importing
Is this
CSV, like substreams outputting into CSV and then loading that CSV into Postgres as a subgraph.
Well, the question was about the Postgres sync, not about subgraphs.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Because we can.
Would you like to elaborate, Harsh, on your question?
I think he's asking, are we... Sorry, I shouldn't assume. Yeah, using a CSV as a sink.
Yeah, so you can already do that. Just call your substream endpoint provider, and then you can provide a substream, and then you can do whatever you want with it. But it's not using GraphNode. So you can output the sync into various different things. Parquet, which Mazzari worked on, CSV, Postgres.
Dude, the fact that you can dump a CSV and then load it into Postgres and still be like one-to-one accurate data and everything, it just blows my mind. And it's way faster too, supposedly.
Line by line inserts into databases is slow.
You mean as a subgraph, right? Or like substream based
Just
subgraph?
in general.
Okay. Vincent is asking a question regarding the cache. Maybe someone can help him. But I don't think you're looking in the right folder. No, IOH was particularly made for this. So if anyone can help you, that would be amazing. If not, yeah, we can always move to the Firehose channel after IOH.
The directory name is the hash of the module. So if you use the substream CLI and you say substreams info and then your substream, it will give you the module hashes, and then the cache is organized by module hash. Oh yeah, so Mark.
Interesting.
Andre just typed the command there. So a substream may involve like one or more modules, so you may have one or more cache directories. So there's not one for the entire substream, it's per module. Because modules are reusable. So the cache is reusable for multiple substreams that use the same module. Aha. Very good feature.
Sweet. Seems like Vincent's been helped out, so that's always good to see. So we're coming into the final 10 minutes. I see a few people typing, so I'll pause.
see Harsh has another question. I've sunk data the past 20 days into my Postgres database. How can I add data that's 40 days old without resyncing the data from the last 20 days? Does anyone have an answer for that?
Can't you just stream from the last block forward? So if you look in your database, find the most recent block, and then just stream +1 forward?
No, he wants older data. Like, he has the last 20 days, but he wants the last 40, but doesn't want to re-import the last 20. Basically.
Oh, just, yeah, do that in the opposite direction. So stream from, block X to block Y, where block Y is one less than the earliest block in your database.
Oh, you can do that? Amazing. Dude, like, only now I understand how big of a deal Firehose/substreams are. Like, only now that I got to play around with it and see how it actually works, I get to understand how good of a piece of a software is. Yeah, it just probably just needs a lot more documentation though, but otherwise it's amazing. And it opens up so many great things to explore as an ecosystem, which is super exciting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, Builders DAO should have a Chainlink substream coming soon. Interesting. Wait, so substream-based subgraphs are composable in their nature, or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, so basically, like, you can import an S package, or that's kind of the overall definition of the substream. And so you can essentially reuse others' code bases, right? But because the modules are cached at a module level, if I'm understanding correctly, Matthew, you can correct me, but my understanding was that you don't need to re-index the same module's data if it's already stored in cache because you synced it once before. Assuming it's still in cache, you wouldn't need to resync it.
Right.
But say you don't have it, does it sync it automatically then?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
So the cache management for substreams is currently only write only. So it just adds to the cache. There's nothing that automatically cleans it up.
Oh.
It's on the to-do list at some point when enough people get annoyed with it that we should have some sort of cache management, which would involve understanding how often a cache is accessed or some other criteria, right? It's not just as simple as this is the oldest one, so delete it. Well, it might be the oldest one, but it's the one that everybody also uses, so we better keep it. So we need some statistics to go with the cache.
Yeah, I guess I'm monitoring based on accessibility, like the amount of access the files get, basically. So or something in the lines of that. Yeah, interesting. But like, how big does that cache go? Like, do we have to worry about that in the near term, or?
If you said you have lots of disk space.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. If it's just terabytes, it's fine. If it's like hundreds of terabytes, then it's not fine anymore. Because my plan is
subgraphs with different substreams are you running? That will determine how fast it will grow, right?
Oof. So yeah, I need to cough up some more $1,000, I guess. Hopefully the bull market hits soon.
one thing that Vincent and I were chatting about a little bit earlier today is, like the hosted service is thinking, rough guess, tens or hundreds of thousands of subgraphs. I don't actually know. But is it realistic to think that a single indexer could also index, tens or hundreds of thousands of substreams? Or let me put that differently. Let's say that I'm an indexer and I'm currently syncing 100 subgraphs, right? Would I also realistically, average wise, think with, I can now support 100 substreams? Or is there kind of a difference in the overall load, between substreams and subgraphs?
I don't know. I guess the usual answer with Firehose is, are the substreams live or they're historical? Right? Because if you have to go back and calculate all the blocks for the last 7 years, well, that uses a bunch of CPU and storage, right? If it's already
let's assume
live,
that they're all at chain head.
well, then it's easy, because then it's just doing, there's a block every 12 seconds. You need to do some calculations every 12 seconds. Not too complicated. Right? So it's perfectly reasonable to say the average indexer could do hundreds of substream-based subgraphs if they're at chain head.
Can you, so for example, in the Uniswap v2 case, can you just start the substream at chainhead and it would still have the same kind of data as the ones that started it from the start block?
No, because you actually have, in the case of Uniswap, it's using stores, and the stores need to be populated. So it actually has to start at whatever the start block is for Uniswap.
So they're basically just like subgraphs.
Basically.
But
some substreams don't have stores, and you can just start them at now.
Yeah, I was about to say.
They don't have to do any historical calculations, right? You just need the current state.
Yep, makes sense. So basically, you're gonna have like historical indexers versus chainhead indexers, so to speak.
Yeah, which is great, because now, like with GIP we discussed earlier, now the indexers can exchange services amongst themselves. Hey, do you have this? Great, I'll grab your data that's already pre-calculated and I'll use it.
Yep.
Right, so we should get out of the business that every indexer needs to run the historical substream for every single subgraph, because that's just a waste of CPU. We need more than one, but we don't need 100.
We would still benefit from having 100, though, in terms of both redundancy and data integrity, so to speak.
100 subgraphs or 100 indexers who process the historical substreams?
Well, both.
But is there enough incentives to pay for all that CPU to run?
That's a good question. Probably not.
Right. So we have to look at the economics of, does it make sense?
Well, it might make sense in the peak of the next bull run, or the bull run in 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, we will get to a point where more and more data will make its way through, like, to the blockchain space, and then there's gonna be a need for someone to grab that data. So for sure, that's going to be a time when that's going to be profitable.
But now, maybe not so much.
Exactly, yeah. But now is the best time to prepare and learn for what the future might hold.
Alexis is going to jump in here, it looks like.
Yeah, I was about to write that ideally we'd have verifiable Firehose data, wink wink. Interpret this as you wish, and in that case, the integrity is not so much of a problem. You would just care about availability and quality of service, but you will not worry as much about getting wrong data. So that will help also with that market, right? If that's one of the worries you had.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. That is indeed awesome. What about verifiable queries though? Like, we had that in the pipeline at some point. It just disappeared.
it is very hard. So that's why it's very hard and very costly. Like the techniques, I mean, I'm no specialist, but the techniques we've explored are extremely costly. But we hope that, shell proofs. We hope that we can build a chain of trust starting with Firehose up. But yeah, our guys are they're sitting right next to me, so they're probably excited I'm talking about them. They are working on interesting things. I cannot promise anything, but yeah, work is being done.
That's great
Research.
to know.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
hopefully.
for now, sorry,
No,
I
go
just
ahead,
saw
go ahead.
right now the message from Marc-Andre that for now shell proofs are a dead end, but maybe not. We cannot, research was done and it didn't quite fit for those use cases, but all research is useful, so it may come back in some form and may resurrect in a mutated form. Who knows?
Indeed.
But yeah, if it's not that, it's something else. So we're definitely working on this.
Yeah. Agreed that not all research is wasted, and excited to see what the future iterations look like. Cool. Well, we're 3 minutes over the mark. But as always, if folks want to stick around and just chill, you're more than welcome to. But I will take this opportunity to thank all of you for attending and say this is the official wrap of the IOH episode. But as I said, always always welcome to stick around and just vibe. So yeah, thank you all for attending, and we look forward to hosting you all again same time next week. Looking forward to it, and we'll see you guys then. Bye bye, everyone.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.